Hi, this is JP Morgan.
And this is Kenneth Merrill.
Today on the Slanted Lens, we're going to take a look at David versus Goliath.
We want to compare the Canon 70-200, which is a staple on like every photo and video set I've ever been on, versus the newer Zeiss 70-200. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Zeiss zoom range is the same as the Canon, and they also have a 28-70 to kind of match up with the Canon's 24-70. Heck, they have a 16-35. But I mean, what are the big differences here? Of course, photo lenses are designed to be lightweight, easy to carry around, compact, and focus as fast as possible.
Autofocus friendly.
Yeah. Another big difference is that the cinema zoom, of course, is going to be parfocal, meaning that if you start at 70 millimeters on this and focus on an object and then zoom in to 200, your image will not be in focus by the end, because when you're shooting photographs, you don't do that.
Because your autofocus is jumping when you go, you know? And
so the question for me is, let's say I'm doing a commercial or something, I need that range. Do I rent this lens for a week for about $1,000, or do I just buy this one for $1,800?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's be very clear about what a cinema style lens is. Like, it has declicked aperture.
Yeah, declicked aperture. It has gears, parfocal, heavy duty build. We'll be shooting these tests on the red Helium camera, so that we're using a cinema camera to compare the cinema lens with the stills one.
So obviously this is a clear loser because it does not have a declick shutter, it does not have parfocal, it does not have the gears. I mean, it's just a huge loser. So why do people use this so much?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's super available. Everybody has these. You can pick up at any local camera store. It's sharp. I mean, the version 2 is one of the sharpest Canon lenses that is out there at all. It's beautiful. It has a great look to it. And it's really affordable. Even if you're not planning to buy it, you could rent it for $75 a day or less, $50 a day.
Super cheap. So if picture is the issue, if sharpness and a clean image is really what matters, then let's test these two on that level. How do they compare with each other with regards to picture quality?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. A special shout out to Borrow Lenses, which is a great place to rent equipment like this.
I mean, this is a perfect example of something that's super expensive and kind of hard to find. $15,000 lens, not something you normally just order online, but Borrow Lenses, you can rent it from them temporarily. Very affordable, very easy.
I can't wait to rent it and put it on my Rebel T6i.
So we want to test the lenses at various focal lengths and various apertures. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to shoot through at a couple different points in the focal range at wide open aperture, just to see how good both lenses are wide open. Off the bat, they both look pretty dang similar to me. I mean, the Zeiss is a little less contrast. Maybe there's more red in the Canon lens, and just in terms of color and tonality. We blow these up to 200%, and you do see a little bit of difference. The Canon isn't quite as sharp as the Zeiss, just a hair. I feel like you don't quite get the detail in the eyelashes.
It's hard to tell though if she's like rocking out of focus or not,
It is such a narrow depth of field. Super sharp Zeiss. I'm really impressed with that lens.
Well, of course, the Zeiss, you'd expect to be super sharp. But you know what? The Canon is not that far behind it, is it?
No. It's hard to tell, of course, here because it's out of focus.
Well, look at her lips, all of the detail on her texture, and yeah,
it's awesome.
That Zeiss lens is pretty amazing.
200 millimeters. It looks like they're both back in focus. I still say the Zeiss is a little sharper.
I agree, but you're splitting hairs at this point. You really are.
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
So this is 200% at 200 millimeters. And yeah, I mean, you look at her eyes and they're neck and neck with the Zeiss just barely edging it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really pretty to look at, the Zeiss. We're still recording. We are still good. I think my exposure's off, but we're still good. Still working. Drop through the lemon tree, hit the ground. So this next test, we're going to shoot at 5.6 at the 3 different focal lengths, at 70, 135, and 200. Now this really should be where these lenses are the sharpest, I would think.
Yeah, most lenses perform best about 2 stops in from open. So we thought about doing an 8 because it's in the middle of the range, but a 5.6 is really guaranteed to be one of the sharpest points of performance for both of them. So
should be the optimum place. Again, we're comparing a Zeiss lens to a Canon lens. I mean, the Zeiss lens really should be kicking the Canon lens butt, but we'll see.
We'll see.
So like I say, 5.6 is kind of the optimal shooting point on most lenses because it's about 2 stops down from wide open. So this should look very sharp on both of them.
You have a little more depth of field, so if she leans back, it's not as big of a deal. Blowing it up to 200%, I mean, they both look really sharp.
I don't know what to say. They both look great sharp. They look sharp. They look nice. I mean, look at the detail in her hair. Look at the detail in her eyes, and I mean, at 135 millimeters, we're now getting a little more depth of fields falling off in the background with the two.
I feel like the performance matches better on this. Like when they're wide open, I could definitely see the Canon was a little bit softer. Whereas this one, I'm just kind of like, they're the same. If you just told me these were the same lens, I'd probably believe you. Blown up 200%. You still have a slight edge maybe in the Zeiss.
Boy, it's very, very slight.
At 200 millimeters, they look identical.
There's some cinema qualities we talked about that lens possesses that the Canon does not. But is it worth $12,000, $13,000?
I don't know if it is.
Look at that, f5.6 at 200 millimeters, blown up 200%.
I'm gonna say that 200 millimeters is the sweet spot for that Canon. It really
looks incredible.
It performs incredible at that focal length.
It does. I mean, the Zeiss is nice too.
Zeiss is just good, yeah. But this Canon is definitely the best at 200 millimeters. Yeah.
So let's take a look at f22 at the 3 different focal lengths: 70, 135, and 200. So f22, she's in direct sunlight on that white wall.
This is a beautiful looking shot.
Yeah. No, it's not as bad as you
Look at the
thought.
tonality. It's a little cooler on the Canon lens.
No, it has that magenta cast to it. It has more of a green cast on the Zeiss side.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, f22 is not great for these. Either one. I'd say they're way better at wide open than they are at f22. Yeah. Which is fine because, who wants to shoot it?
Yeah, you're not going to use f22 on a 200 millimeter lens or, on this lens very often.
They both look about the same to me.
Yeah, at this f-stop, neither of them are performing amazingly. I mean, you don't get the tack sharpness that we got in the others at all. It's a little softish.
I would actually say maybe the Canon's a little sharper. Shooting these tests with Lezl is really great because it's nice to have someone that looks nice in a scene that kind of resembles what you'd be shooting in real life. But we also want to do a sort of more scientific clinical test where we check for corner performance and resolving power at the various apertures. So we're going to set the camera up on this sign behind me. No person's under 21.
Nobody under 21.
And then we're going to shoot the sign at 2.9, 5.6, and f22 and see how the lenses hold up against a more contrasting textured flat background. Finally, we just wanted to test edge resolution on these at the various apertures. At wide open, the Zeiss, you see the softness, a little low contrast, punch in, you can see kind of the edging around the numbers. But I mean, totally fine. 5.6, it's gonna perform perfectly. It's gonna look really, really nice.
You see the detail in the lines on the right and left, they're like just really clean.
Again, not as great at f22. Overall though, pretty consistent performer, minus, the far end, but still very usable all around. The Canon looks really good wide open. I'm looking at the corners here and I'm not seeing any corner, corner softness or anything in any of these. So overall, I mean, we look at them, they both perform excellent across the board, except maybe closed down, it gets a little soft.
I have to just throw this in there because I just have to throw it in there. But we threw the Tamron 70 to 200 millimeter on, and it was amazing how sharp that lens was. Unfortunately, the Tamron is not made to be used on the red nose. It doesn't interface with them.
Right, we can't control
so we were just wide open on it, but it
stacked up nicely.
It stacked up very nicely against the Canon, and so that made me feel good to be able to see that. So I just have to throw that in there. But
I think if you're just looking at image quality and getting a nice image, the Canon totally does that.
Yep.
I would buy that Canon over renting the Zeiss anytime, but of course, being the one using it, it was harder to focus the Canon. It was way, because it's a lot shorter focus throw, so I had a lot harder time getting it right on her eye or whatever. Of course, you have all the bells and whistles that go with the cinema zoom.
Yeah, which if you're using and need them, then you kind of need them, and that just depends on what you're doing, and if that application applies, then you're going to have to spend the money to rent it or buy it if that's what you need. But for most people, I think they're pretty happy with that less expensive 70 to 200 millimeter lens.
Well, it just makes me feel good knowing that if I'm just looking to get a good image and I don't need those cinema features for this particular project, I can go out and get one of these for as a real budget option, and I'll be able to get the image that I want. And the image is going to look pretty much just as good as the Zeiss would.
Now, the parfocal is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, being able to actually zoom with your zoom lens, of course. I mean, that will be one thing where you have to get the cinema zoom.
I don't know. I thought that David versus Goliath was a very interesting test, and I was happy with how the Canon stacked up against that Zeiss lens. So if you're interested in learning more about filmmaking, Kenneth and I have a download over at theslantlens.com where you can purchase. It'll help you make a transition from being a still photographer to a videographer. It's going to teach you the things you need to be able to know to be able to make money doing video, which is really the goal.
Yeah, it's really about investing in yourself, not just picking up a fun new video that's going to teach you a couple cool tricks. We want you to be able to expand your skill set and find new clients, or be able to offer new services to the clients that you already have. So we're selling this course at a really affordable price, and you should be able to pay it off easily with like the first video project.
Oh my word, yeah. you shoot some for your grandma, you'll pay this off. So we're going to teach you about sound, we're going to teach you about camera moves, we're going to teach you the skills you need to be able to make great videos. So get over to theslantlens.com, pick up our download today. Make sure you follow us, like us, subscribe. We really need you to leave comments here on our video, and keep those cameras rolling.
And keep on clicking.